Now, the former Labour Green New Zealand First Coalition government called for a draft national policy statement for Indigenous biodiversity. Biodiversity is something that happens naturally on sheep and beef farms, according to our next guest, Mr. Steve Wyn-Harris, who joins us now from Hawke's Bay. Evening, sir.
It's a very formal introduction. How are you?
Good. Well, I was thinking that with those Mr. Hopkins red glasses, you're a very distinguished look. It's great to have you on video because you're doing a lot of radio around the country, but, I think you suit TV.
Well, these are $2 shot glasses, so you get what you pay for. They're my reading glasses. If I wanted to go up market, I would put on the flash ones for looking into the distance. But they're no good at looking at you or glancing down at my notes. So $2 shot glasses it is. And I talked to you in your first week or two, I think, and it was just over the phone. And this is a bit of a revelation that we're on video now. I might have considered having a haircut or even tidying my office behind me here, especially when you just talk to the people in the UK who are having their breakfast. So I now find you've gone international as well since I talked to you.
Hey, Steve, this is all about, the next generation of media progressing this country forward. We're trying to pull all the guns out here. Of course, we share something in common, which is commentating through our fantastic friends at Farmers Weekly. You with your wonderful opinion pieces that are well read. And last week's caught my attention because utilising one or the other glasses, you peered back the sward within your paddock and said, hang on a minute, there's not monoculture going on here.
Well, yeah, we get accused of having these monoculture pastures out there and that we need to get a lot more biodiversity. And, of course, that's the new buzzword. And, in fact, there's going to be a policy hitting you anytime soon about biodiversity. And even the proponents that you've talked to about regenerative agriculture give those of us who are traditional farmers a hard time about our lack of diversity in our pastures and on our farms. And then I read a piece by some greenies having a go at farmers about our monoculture systems that we've got, and it got me sort of so not enraged, but I got excited enough to go out there and have a look at some of my pastures, and then I started writing down what I saw in my notebook, and then that turned into a column, and it's quite a wide range of species out there.
And, New Zealand's been in love with ryegrass and white clover for many decades and generations. But deep underneath those, could you give us a bit of an explanation of your findings? What is going on beyond the top of that what looks like a sea of green?
Well, ryegrass and white clover, it's a human construct. It doesn't occur naturally in nature. We've designed that for good reason, as a pasture. Of course, the ryegrass needs phosphates and sulfur, potassium, and mainly phosphate and sulfur. But what it really desires is nitrogen. And in this country, New Zealand, our competitive advantage with the rest of the world is that we can grow clover for 8 or 9 or 10 months of the year, and it fixes a lot of nitrogen. The atmosphere is 70-odd% of nitrogen, and it grabs that free nitrogen and collects it and stores it and fixes it down with the rhizobia, and the ryegrasses and other grasses grab that nitrogen as well as the clover. So it's a really good system, and it's a great pasture. And I wish that my pastures were just ryegrass and white clover. But I went, here's a list from my column of some of the grasses that are out on my farm. So tell me if this sounds like a monocultural desert. So this is just the grasses: ryegrass, cocksfoot, poa, brown top, sweet vernal, timothy, paspalum, Yorkshire fog, tall fescue, barley grass, crested dogsoil, prairie grass, and danthonia. And that's just the ones that I could recognise from my Lincoln days, which is about 40-something years ago. And there were other grasses there as well. So, that's quite a wide array of different grass species. If we have a look at the clovers, a little bit more limited. There's white clover, subclover, suckling red, and trefoil. So we haven't even started on the other stuff yet.
Yeah. So, Steve, as you said, from your Lincoln days and the Lincoln Farm Manual that everybody loves to refer to, how far has it come in terms of pastoral advice out there with the rise of so many companies and ag chem, et cetera, and the push towards production yield?
Yeah, I think we started pushing back at the scientists. Well, I did, the plant breeding scientists, because they really have pushed production in the plants. But, it's $1,000, $1,200, $1,300 a hectare to get a contractor as I do and regrass when you're putting in crops. And that's a lot of money. And if these plants, if the ryegrasses and clovers that they're breeding only last 4, 5, 6 years, you have to be an intensive cropping farmer to be tipping your pastures over that quickly. If you're a hill country farmer like me, a sheep and beef farmer, I probably do 5 to 10%. So even if it was 10%, it's going to take me a decade and probably 2 decades at 5% to get around my farm. And a lot of it, of course, I can't cultivate. But persistence is more important. We need these plants to last. But it wasn't just the plant breeding going down the production route. It's also our management has improved, and also fertility levels. You don't get something for nothing and for free in life, Sarah, as you probably know.
Yeah, absolutely.
You put fertiliser on and look after these pastures.
Yeah.
But they've definitely improved, and some of my new grass pastures are really good, and I manage them a lot better than I did 20 or 30 years ago when I didn't know so much. And the advice has changed as well in terms of management.
Oh, you'd hope so, absolutely, because, we are gaining in knowledge and therefore improving. Rotational grazing, set stocking, all of these things have come from better pasture management. And let's be honest, we have learned things from the dairy industry and sheep and beef industry on pasture management. It certainly has gone a long way. But with it, especially the rise in temperature, is the rise in animal health issues and diseases as well. Steve, how are you finding it trying to balance and manage that with such erratic seasons?
Yeah, I don't think because I've been farming 40 years now, I don't think I've seen an increase in, due to global warming or climate change or anything in terms of the pests that afflict my stock. It's the same old ones, fly strike and internal parasites, the main ones, a little bit of external in terms of lice and things. We've got good tools to deal to those, but you need to be doing, if it's drench, you need to do fecal egg count reduction tests and make sure that you're using the correct drench and that it's actually working. A lot of farmers don't do that. I'm one, probably only 10 or 15 or 20% of farmers who do. So, the nature will always win in the end in terms of we're breeding for resistance every time we use a drench or any sort of application. But, if you know your status and you're doing it correctly, they still work for me, but they cost a bit of money. It comes back to that thing, you don't get something for nothing. So no, I wouldn't say I've had an increase in lurgies out there attacking me. It's the same old suspects.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, I tell you what, you don't get anything for nothing, but it's certainly you pay for it if you do the cheap option and don't look at the long term. I mean, worm resistance will cost you hugely in the long run. Steve, we just talked about the rain gauge. I mean, it's no joke, absolutely, what's happening in the low-lying areas of particularly Napier. How's the rain gauge looking at your place over the last sort of 48 hours?
Oh, we're good. We're fine. We on that Monday afternoon and evening, where poor old Napier got 250 mils of rain, and much of that was sort of from about 4 p.m. until sort of midnight. I'd only had 15 mils by 4 p.m., but by the morning time we had about 60. So we got a good rain. It's good to be going into the summer finally wetted up, because we've been very dry. That was probably our heaviest rainfall day, I think, for 18 months at least, maybe 2 years.
And it went deep to the roots? Yeah,
I think so, because we didn't have that torrential downpour that they got in Napier. It was just, it was a very particular system, a nasty system. It could easily have been a bit further north of Napier or further south down this way. It was just the way that these weather events combined. So it's caused, terrible destruction for those poor people in Napier. But if you looked at the rain gauges around Napier, Hastings, Havelock, and just a little further north, they were similar to me, maybe 100, 120 mils, and our coast got 120 mils. So for most of us, it was a good rain. But the residents of Napier have paid the price, unfortunately.
Steve, I'd like to close on some great Steve Wyn-Harris advice. We're going into an unknown season. A lot of people are saying it could potentially be a wet summer ahead. A lot are saying prepare for the same, if not worse, than last year. What would your advice be to farmers in dry areas around pasture management and, of course, livestock, in terms of quitting early, etc.?
Well, it's hard to give advice because, that's the great trick of farming, is you don't know what is around the corner. I mean, if it was easy, Sarah, everyone would be doing it. It looks like it might become a wet season now, but honestly, just at Labour weekend, we were just on the edge of our seats. Is this La Nina that's forecast going to bring in some easterly events, which is just what we were talking about, is what we've seen, or not? So we were very dry, had feed, but no moisture in the soil at all. And now we've had a complete change. So we're well set up until Christmas. January, February, March, who knows? Whatever. But, people, there's a lot of hay being cut and silage being put in. So, yeah, you've got to do that. You've got to put away your stocks. I'm a feed budgeter, so I don't tend to feed out. I match my feed demand and my feed supply, or try to. And funny enough, the challenge now is maintaining pasture quality, whereas only 2 or 3 weeks ago it was making sure I had enough feed for my stock. So, it could change very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Are you noticing a flow-on effect to the labour pinch in rural contractors in the area?
I've been okay, and I think the contractors around here tend to have established staff, locals, and then students will turn up over the summer. So it's not quite so much of a problem in this part of the world, but yeah, it's certainly an issue in other parts of the country. And of course, our apple growers and other horticulturists are very concerned about the prospects of getting their fruit off.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Steve, thank you so much. Steve Wyn-Harris, Central Hawke's Bay farmer, co-radio station owner, opinion maker, man of many hats. And of course, you can catch every single week in Farmers Weekly Steve Wyn-Harris's column, whereby he highlights what is running through his brain this week. And I tell you what, it's absolutely well worth a read.
This is Sarah's Country.